Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 640, December the 20th, 2018, Thursday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today I am going to officially call on the president to fire Uncle Bob, the executioner, and I am going to make the case for that. I never ask people to share my videos or even subscribe or anything else, or donate money or anything else. I'm going to make an exception today and ask that you share this video, particularly those of you who have Twitter, to share this video on the president's Twitter feed. I would like for the president to see this video. I want to make the case why he needs to fire Special Counsel Mueller. So, Mr. President, fire Mueller. You have the legal authority to do so. So I want to go through how you might do this. First of all, you wait till January the 4th, the day after the new Congress is sworn in. And the first thing you want to do is abolish the special counsel regulations. These regulations were created by the executive branch, not the Congress, so they are not a law. They are a rule put in place by the executive branch. Therefore, you, Mr. President, can reverse or abolish that rule. It's not a law. That means that you don't need to direct your Attorney General or Acting Attorney General or Deputy Attorney General or anyone else. You can then be free and perfectly legal to fire Uncle Bob, the executioner, Mueller, and the Hillary donor posse yourself. Reverse the rule and fire Uncle Bob yourself, Mr. President. Next, call in key Republicans and advise them, and of course you want to do this before you fire Uncle Bob. Before you fire Uncle Bob, on the morning of the day that you're going to fire Uncle Bob, the day after the Congress changes hands, January the 4th, first thing that morning, get key Republicans in a private meeting and advise them that you are about to fire Mueller for cause. And the cause is that the investigation that he's conducting was based on fraud. And he knows that the investigation was based on fraud. Now, these key Republicans would probably be certainly Graham in the Senate, along with maybe 2 or 3 other committee leaders in the Senate. You might include Rand Paul. There's maybe a handful that you would call, particularly the Republicans that head these Senate committees, which is most of them, because you control the Senate on January 4th with a nice majority. Most of your never-Trumpers are gone. You only really have Collins and Murkowski. You also want to bring in those who probably members of the Freedom Caucus, several of them. Certainly Meadows and Jordan, maybe Gohmert. So basically about a dozen to maybe 15 key Republicans on the morning of the 4th. Call them in your office, tell them what you're going to do. Of course, tell them to keep it to themselves and not to say a word until you've made the formal announcement. This is so you don't blindside them, and you want to get their support. Some of them will object. Maybe a lot of them will object. You just need to lay out the case. In the case they all know is true, that Uncle Bob is presiding over an investigation that was in itself a cover-up operation after the failure of the deep state coup. But once they realize that you're dead set on doing it, they'll have no choice really but to support you. The next thing that you do is you fire Uncle Bob the executioner. After you speak to these key Republicans, you have the U.S. Marshals go to the offices of Uncle Bob where they're conducting the operation with a letter from you informing him that he and his band of Hillary donor posse prosecutors are being relieved of their duties. You make sure that when they leave their room that the U.S. Marshals confiscate their communication devices. You make sure that they do not leave the room with any information whatsoever. And you put the entire room on lockdown to protect the evidence. Next, you address the nation in prime time. And you explain to them that you are firing, or that you have fired, Uncle Bob the executioner because you have seen and possess evidence that the investigation was based on a fraud and that the investigation is part of a plot for a soft palace coup. Explain that you will be immediately directing Mr. Whitaker to appoint a special counsel to conduct the investigation and the prosecution of the coup plotters. Explain that you will be releasing all documents pertinent to the matter. They will all be declassified and released so the media and the public can pore over them and see the evidence for themselves. And make sure that you tell the country that once the facts are known, that the country can be sure that the coup was averted and that the rule of law has been restored. So the next thing you do is the following day, on January 5th, 2019, you sign the executive order declassifying all Spygate-related documents, all documents related to the coup, to be made available to the media and the public immediately. Next, you'll want to summon, same day, January 5th, summon Rodenstein to see if he wants to cut a deal. If not, fire him. Next, same day, January 5th, direct A.G. Whitaker to serve search warrants on Uncle Bob the executioner Mueller, his private residence or residences and private offices, as well as all members of his Hillary donor posse. Remove all pertinent documents. Midnight raids are the best way to go, Mr. President. Ask Paul Manafort. Serve warrants on all key players in the coup plot. Search and remove all pertinent documents from Comey, Obama, Clinton, McCabe, Priestep, Lynch, Glenn Simpson, Bruce and Nellie Orr, Clapper, Brennan, Baker, Mueller, Strzok, Page, and all the rest. Mr. President, I recommend midnight raids. Do them simultaneously. This should all happen on January the 5th, Mr. President. Next, you want to call William Barr and see if he still wants to be the AG. If not, let Whitaker continue. He has up to 1 year with his extension. So now you're wondering what happens next. Well, the first thing that will happen is that millions of people around the world will celebrate. Not just here at home, but all around the world. People are watching this. Some, however, will not celebrate. Many of them will riot. That's okay. Arrest them when they break the law. Protesting's fine. But if they break the law, arrest them. Democrats will cry for impeachment hearings. which are conducted in the Senate, and conducted by the Senate Judiciary Chairman. That is Lindsey Graham. Go for it. Because while the special counsel is doing his private or secret investigation, the way they operate, you can have the public investigation. That's right, because in the Senate hearings for impeachment, that will be covered by C-SPAN every day, all day, until it's over. And you'll get to bring in all the perpetrators, sit them down in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and ask them all the questions they refuse to answer. And now you'll have all the evidence that Rodenstein blocked from you for the past 2 years. You have all the evidence. I think that at first the Democrats may be crying for impeachment, but as soon as they sit and think about it for a minute and realize that an impeachment hearing would essentially be bringing in the perpetrators, questioning them and catching them in their lies, that would be a very bad thing for them. In fact, if I'm you, Mr. President, I would direct Lindsey Graham to start the impeachment hearings, because the impeachment hearings will reveal the facts, the evidence, and the truth. All you got to do is wait for Mad Max immediately to call for impeachment. And Lindsey Graham can get a huge smile on his face and say, "Thank you very much, Mad Max. Just what we wanted. Impeachment hearings playing out in front of the entire world on C-SPAN every day. We're going to bring in Obama and Hillary and Lynch and Comey and Strzok and Page with all the evidence we have, and we are going to grill them under oath in front of the world and expose the plot live on TV while the special prosecutor is preparing the indictments." Now, my guess is the first thing that would happen once Trump comes out and says that he is going to declassify, that he is going to release everything, that he is going to direct, or he has directed Whitaker for special counsel, and that he is going to prove with the evidence that he has the coup plot. My guess is that many of the coup plotters, those involved, many of them are going to come forward begging Mr. Whitaker for a deal. Begging for a deal. Because they'll know that the truth is coming out and that their goose is cooked. Your friend, Mr. President, is the evidence. And it's their Achilles heel. It's what will take them down. And you've got it. No need to wait for it. Keep that in mind, Mr. President, that the deep state and the Democrats and the media, they all know what they did. They know they're guilty. They know that once you explain that the truth is going to come out, because you're going to get it out, and they know that you will be vindicated by the evidence, and they know that the perps will be exposed, you will have the evidence, and the media and the public will have it too. And that proves your case. You can expect the markets to go down temporarily, maybe a week, maybe a month. You'll have some very chaotic markets. You'll have quite a bit of chaos going on in the country. There'll be a lot of people shouting constitutional crisis. Not really. Everything's a constitutional crisis. There'll be a lot of noise. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the facts and the evidence will carry the day, Mr. President. And it won't take long. Because as I said, once the perps know the game is up, many of them will come forward and spill their guts. Let those hearings go on. Let them impeachment hearings go on live on C-SPAN every day. Let's see Comey and Obama and Clinton and all the rest answer to the evidence. Let's see that. Let's see how that works out. The Democrats will rue the day they ever ask for impeachment hearings. That is what you do, Mr. President. Some people are going to say, well, that means that there'll be no legislative agenda. Once you do that, that's it. Because the entire country will be focused on nothing but the impeachment hearings and the investigation. Well, guess what, Mr. President? What kind of a legislative agenda have you had in the last 2 years with Republicans controlling both branches? Now you're going to have Democrats controlling the House. They are the resistance. Their entire goal is to make sure you get nothing through. Have you seen what they're preparing for you? Subpoenas, more investigations. Those things will all fall to the wayside. They'll be pale in comparison to the main event, which will be happening in the Senate. Your impeachment hearings, where the truth will come out on C-SPAN every day, while your special counsel is preparing the indictments, while many of the perps will be coming in and turning state's evidence. That's exactly what will happen, Mr. President. As soon as the first one comes forward, knowing good and well that their goose is cooked, they'll fall like dominoes. And the bug-eyed fool, his little investigations and all the subpoenas and all the other things, they will be just lost in the haze, because the main show, the main event, will be playing out in the Senate and the impeachment hearings that Mad Max is going to call for and that you are going to cheer. Couldn't work out more perfectly. There's not going to be a legislative, anything happening legislatively. If you couldn't get anything done legislatively through the House with Republicans controlling it, how do you think you're going to do with the Democrats? They're part of the resistance. They are going to make sure that you get nothing done legislatively. So you're not going to get anything done legislatively anyway. So anyone who tries to make that argument to you, Mr. President, is not thinking clearly. The Democrats' plan is to resist and obstruct. They're not going to work with you on anything, even if you try an infrastructure bill. They'll load it down with Democrat pork and all kinds of crap just to make sure that you get either a really bad deal or no deal, because they win either way. Either they get what they want with a bunch of pork and garbage, or they stop you from getting the bill, in which case they're going to campaign on that in 2020. And you only have 2 years, Mr. President. People will be going to the polls to vote. Less than 2 years. In less than 2 years, people will be going to vote in 2020. If you don't do this, you are going to be under constant investigation, subpoenas. They will control the complete narrative. You will have no legislative agenda whatsoever. They will be dogging you for the whole time. They will continue these investigations. Uncle Bob will find something. He will find something or someone. He will pass stuff over to the Southern District of New York to go into your financials and your business and your family's business. And he will leave a narrative in his final report, which he'll give to the House committee, which they will use to go for impeachment, and you will have impeachment anyway. So what I'm saying, Mr. President, is either way you go, your legislative agenda is not going to happen. It's going to be thwarted at every turn, and you are going to have impeachment hearings in the Senate. These two things are going to happen, Mr. President. The question is, who's going to be running the show? Fire Uncle Bob the Executioner, Mr. President. Address the nation and tell them why. Then direct Mr. Whitaker to appoint a special counsel. Wait for Mad Max to call for impeachment. Put a big smile on all your faces and begin the impeachment hearings and bring in the perps for the hearings. Because you control the Senate. You control the impeachment hearings. And if the charge is that they want to impeach you because you fired the special counsel, because they'll say you're trying to prevent him from showing that that you committed crimes, you can simply say, well, he's been at it for 2 years. If he's got evidence that I committed any crimes or collusion with Russia or anything else, put it on the table. Let's see it. In the meantime, I'm suggesting that there was a coup plot against me, and so we're going to carry out those hearings in the Senate and find out if there was a coup plot at play against me. I think that'll work out very well in your favor, Mr. President. And the Democrats will be sorry that they ever asked for impeachment hearings. They're going to happen anyway. Might as well be you that's running them, and you might as well be looking into the right things. That's what you do, Mr. President. Fire Uncle Bob. January the 4th. Make sure you get with about a dozen or 15 key Republicans. Let them know what you're going to do. They're not going to like it. That's tough. They'll get to like it once they understand it. They know exactly what happened, Mr. President. They know. They know exactly what happened. It's just that the way that they want to go about exposing it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Hasn't worked in 2 years, has it? And it's not going to. They'll get nothing. They'll get nothing. That's my advice to you, Mr. President. It's a big move. It's a bold move. But think about it. This is a game of poker. You are holding a royal flush. You got all the cards. They've got nothing but a handful of junk and propaganda. They've got nothing. Call their bluff, Mr. President, at the table. Call their bluff. Bring in Judge Collier. Let her explain on C-SPAN after you've declassified everything about what happened with the 702 queries. Bring in Admiral Rogers. He'll confirm it. Bring the players in those impeachment hearings and grill them on the facts and the evidence. I promise you, Mr. President, after day one of those hearings, you will have these perps coming in and looking to cut deals. They'll be falling over each other to cut deals. You'll get them all. Now let's go on to the news of the day, headlines. We have a few minutes left, so I'll cover them. There's some important things here. Trump has declared victory in Syria. The troops are coming home. Congratulations, Mr. President. Congratulations to our troops. Well done. They're coming home for Christmas. And the deep state is not happy. They love war. Trump loves peace. And he is delivering. Well done, Mr. President. Loretta Lynch testified today. The only word that we have about anything is that she was more cooperative than Comey was, or at least answered more questions. She will flip on a dime. She will flip on a dime. She'll be one of the first looking to cut a deal, Mr. President. The transcript of her testimony will be released before the end of the year, along with the testimonies of 16 others interviewed by the committee. In the BuzzFeed versus Gubarev case, there is now a final ruling by the judge. The judge has ruled in favor of BuzzFeed over Gubarev, saying that the dossier was newsworthy and therefore BuzzFeed was justified in publishing it. And where did BuzzFeed get the dossier? Well, we learned that too from the judge in that case. Just as we suspected all along. Go back a year, over a year and a half. I said, David Kramer, he's the one that gave the dossier to BuzzFeed. Senator Magoo's right-hand man, who was also involved over in Ukraine with Ms. Chalupa and the DNC, and was a huge part of the coup plot. Mr. Kramer should also find himself there in the hearings on C-SPAN, explaining how he participated along with Senator Magoo, whose legacy, as a result of the evidence and the truth coming out, will be destroyed. And you know what? His family knows it. They know it. They don't want those impeachment hearings either, because the truth will be exposed about Senator Magoo and the nefarious activities he was up to in participating in a coup plot. His name will go down in history as a traitor. So the judge revealed in the case it was in fact Mr. Kramer who gave the dossier to BuzzFeed. Now, his spokesman has already come out and said, well, he didn't really give it to him. He went there with the dossier And then he walked out of the room, and one of the editors there at BuzzFeed photocopied it, even though they asked him not to. Well, if Kramer did not want BuzzFeed to have the dossier, then why did he go there to their offices to inform them about it? He's a liar too, just like Senator Magoo. Hang his ass. Kramer, Mr. Kramer, you're a rat and a traitor. I expect to see you swinging from a noose. If the president follows my advice, you will be. The Fed raised rates again today. Why is that? Just as I told you. They know that Trump is getting ready to create a new banking system, a system which will put the globalists in the back seat and pretty soon out of business with their criminal wealth redistribution plot. So this is the way they're going to fight back. They're going to try to drive the country into recession to try to get Trump knocked out in 2020 before he can institute this new banking system. And this is how they're going to do it. They're going to try to kill the economy and send it into recession. The Federal Reserve Board and the Fed need to go. And once Trump puts his new system in place, they will be going. Because when they have to compete against honest money, they'll be out of business. Your days are numbered, Mr. Fed Chairman. Judge Sullivan has blocked Trump's asylum crackdown. This essentially was something Jeff Sessions did before he was fired, which was to speed up the process, not allowing the asylum seekers to abuse the process. Now, Judge Sullivan has overturned Sessions' order, and now the people who were deported are going to have to be brought back and given, I guess, their fair time for hearing for asylum. Well done, Judge Sullivan. You are a son of a bitch for the way you treated Flynn and the disservice you're doing to the country. Ronald Reagan is probably turning in his grave. You suck, Judge Sullivan. Go to hell. The Senate has passed criminal justice reform with 87 votes. It would have been 88, but Lindsey Graham is out of the country. Lindsey Graham's not happy that Trump ended the war in Syria, by the way. Shouldn't surprise anybody. That's okay. He'll get over it. He's got a re-election coming up, so he's going to be modifying his attitude and his positions. Because the folks down in South Carolina are watching very closely. Again, I've never really trusted Lindsey Graham. Don't trust him to this day. He acts in his own self-interest. And right now it's in his self-interest to be Trump's buddy. Now, this particular passage of this criminal justice reform is going to have a major impact on the minority community. This should translate into a lot of votes from minorities in these places, urban districts, where Democrats really run up the vote, the popular vote. A lot of these people are going to benefit, and Trump will get the credit for this. The rotten Reverend Clinton never campaigned on doing this. In fact, it was her husband that made things more miserable for the underclass in the urban cities with his legislation he signed. That's why the rotten Reverend Clinton never wanted to talk about it. Barack Hussein Obama, never did this, never even tried, never even lifted a finger to try. It was Trump who delivered. Now, he will benefit from it at the top of the ticket in 2020 after he's exposed the coup, and the perps are by that time in prison or on their way to jail, having been indicted after being exposed in the impeachment hearings in the Senate. But the Republican Party in general, they're far too stupid to capitalize on this, so I don't expect that they'll be able to do much in a lot of these urban districts picking up these votes, because the Republican Party, the rank and file and the leadership are far too stupid to capitalize on the wonderful, wonderful gift that Trump has just given them. They're just too stupid. Liberal groups are now preparing a witch hunt investigation for Governor DeSantis in Florida. And there'll be more. There'll be more and more and more witch hunt investigations launched by Democrats all across the country against Republicans. It's an all-out war. They have declared war, Mr. President, and Republicans. Now, Republicans are sissies. They don't know how to fight back. They'll go hide under the bed. Hopefully, Ron DeSantis will fight back. Follow my instructions, Mr. President. Shut down Mueller, fire his ass, and let and expose the crime, the Spygate crimes, the coup plot. Expose it, and you'll see a lot of these investigations will wither on the vine as these Democrats go into hiding, knowing what's coming. They'll probably be looking for a new party, because by the time you get done exposing what the Democrats did, and we know from Christopher Steele's sworn testimony just 2 days ago, he was paid by Perkins Coie to produce information that could be used by the rotten Reverend Clinton and Perkins Coie to challenge the election. That information was also used to get FISA warrants in violation of the Woods Act, in violation of the FISA laws, in violation of just about everything. Then they launched criminal investigations based on it. Mueller's witch hunt is illegal. It's illegal because of the charging document, which I read right here on TowerGate, Mr. President. Go back and read it, Mr. President. Rodenstein says that Mueller is being brought in to take over the investigation, which at the time, the day before Mueller came in, it was a intelligence investigation. Intelligence investigation. Then Mueller comes in, it becomes a criminal investigation. And it was all based on the dossier. The dossier and George Papadopoulos having a drink with Alexander Down the Hatch Downer. That was a plot, a complete setup. And the proper interviews of Papadopoulos, Downer, Misfit, and Steele and others in the hearings when you drag their asses over here. And you'll cut that deal, of course, with the British and UK government. You'll tell them that you'll go easy on them and defend them and just put the focus on the perps. That's the deal that you cut with Australia and England, Mr. President. That's how you get Steele. That's how you get Downer. That's how you get Misfit. That's how you get their asses over here. You tell those governments that you'll make it clear that it wasn't those governments that were acting badly. There was just a couple of isolated bad apples named Misfit, Steele, Downer. That will be exposed, Mr. President. Make it happen. Judge Sullivan has slapped a travel ban on Michael Flynn. I guess he thinks he's going to flee the country. Not sure how. He doesn't have any money. What's he going to do? Go somewhere and be a pauper? He cannot go more than 50 miles away from, I guess, his home. Probably have him wearing an ankle bracelet. Who knows? Well done, Judge Sullivan. You suck. Belgium. The Prime Minister has now been forced to resign. He went to the UN in Brussels. He signed on to the UN Migration Pact. That led to massive protests and a no-confidence vote by his parliament because he actually was in the party that's considered one of the nationalist, populist type parties that's supposed to be opposed to that whole thing. But he went and voted for it. And now his ass is gone. Forced to resign from the massive protest after he did a turncoat move. Benedict Arnold, the Benedict Arnold of Belgium, the prime minister there, now resigned. That's how it works, Mr. President. See? Tell the truth, get the evidence out. The people will take care of the rest of the business. We're behind you 100%, Mr. President. You want to see jubilee? You want to see celebrations? You want overwhelming re-election? You want to destroy the Democratic Party right where they stand and all the perpetrators who tried to take you out in the coup plot and are going to continue to do so? I've just told you how to do it. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. You guys have a good night. Peace.